are more than 100 unique styles of beer, each with their own set of ingredients, process, guidelines, history, and experience. If you're a beer lover, an industry leader, or somewhere in between, a better knowledge of beer style will improve your life and your work.
Welcome to A Sense of Beer Style, essential beer style training for those who want to lead in food and beverage. I'm Julia Herz.
And I'm Jeremy Storton.
We're advanced Cicerones, beer judges, home brewers, and we're excited to guide you through the vast and wonderful world of beer styles.
Well, welcome everyone. This is, I say this all the time, Julia. Welcome, Julia, by the way.
Yo, hello.
I say this all the time. This is going to be a fun one, but in this, we're entering the category of the monastic ales. We're talking about the monks who brew beer. And just a quick little side note, when we're talking about Trappist ales, Trappist being a certification through the International Trappist Association, or ITA, where you have to be a monastery, you have to be monks, and you're either brewing the beer or overseeing it, and proceeds or revenue has to come in and support your lifestyle and go to charity. That's the basics of being a true Trappist beer. Then there's Abbey style beers, which are secular brewers who brew monastic style ale. So that's the difference between Trappist and Abbey. Just to clarify that real quick. But this one, most of us have heard some of the others that we're going to talk about, but this one is special because, as the story goes, this is the one that is held back for all the brothers to drink around their abbey. And this is the Belgian Single. Has a lot of nicknames. We've got the Monk's Beer, Brothers Beer, Table Beer, Pater's Beer, or the Monk's Lawnmower Beer. But this is the Belgian Single, and we're going to dive in right now. Julia, do you want to talk to us about ingredients?
I'd be honored. And I want to add to the history. You also have my mind thinking because, you study, you sit for Cicerone all the way up to the master level or beer judge certification program, and you go down these rabbit holes. And this is one of the ones because it's a harder beer to find. As Jeremy's indicating, it's kind of that daily monk's ration. I'm wondering if it's not just for the brothers, but the brothers and sisters, right? So where are nuns in all this? I mean, the Abbey style beers, it makes me want to go down a rabbit hole now and researching what Abbey style beers have the hands of the sisters. So let's just keep that door open and research it on our own. And that's kind of the fun of the journey, is always like having a curiosity in your mind about what we are studying and learning and appreciating, to then fill in those blanks. And so I would love to know that. I would also add, Jeremy, another name, which you named a lot for this kind of single Trappist style beer, is ankle meaning single. So there's another word that can be thrown into the mix. But the deal is, you don't find these a lot. These really are traditionally from those Trappist and or Abbey-style breweries, just from, frankly, the hand of God to the beautiful people that are those physical hands that are brewing the beer. And with that, there's not a lot of ingredients. The core ingredients are Belgian-style Pilsner malt, Belgian ale yeast, and ale, that's important to say, and then continental hops, Sazer-style hops would often be used. So very straightforward ingredients, and not a lot when you look at recipes that will, if you're going to homebrew this or commercially brew this, that will take the brewing process to a lot of different places. It's a very straightforward beer in terms of brewing process as well as ingredients.
Yeah. And you bring up some really good questions. And I want to be very clear that, if you're watching or listening to this, we are not professing religion or no religion or anything like that. But I'm not going to shy away from the fact that these monastic beers, they did worship. This is a religious, has a religious background. So it is what it is. And the fine line between worship and brewing was very, very thin in this regard. And so and so there was a lot of religiosity going along with this beer. So just kind of take this with a grain of salt. And again, we're not preaching other than being a good beer style.
I like that PSA, and I'll add. I mean,
Yeah.
we're paying due to a style created by
Yeah.
monks. I mean, that's important to note. And so, for them, from the hand of God is the way that they would approach this,
Absolutely.
and that is just we're paying due to the history and learning about the background of the makers of this style.
Yep, absolutely. So when we get to appearance, and I'm sorry we had to redo this episode. So the beer that I had been saving is gone. It's in my belly, and it was wonderful. But what we're looking for in appearance, these styles, granted, when we talk about style guidelines, they're guidelines. There's a lot of wiggle room. We know that these tend to be very, very specific. If you brew it differently, it's up to you. Right on. I support you and I'll drink it. But we know that this is a commonality amongst the monasteries that brewed this. It appears, or the appearance really comes across as being very pale yellow to kind of a moderate gold. And that's a very specific range for these styles. These should be quite clear, if not brilliantly clear, then very clear. And the foam on this, you're going to get this moderate, I'd say even moderately high, billowy, just beautiful foam that's going to kind of build upon that, depending on how you pour it out of your bottle. Anyway, if you have a nice clean glass, you have this beautiful beer. Expect some of that incredible Belgian lacing along the side as well. That's the beer as we expect to see it. Talk to us about the aroma, Julia.
I will, and I'll give you a pro tip for the appearance and that billowy notion. Billowy rhymes with pillowy. So
Yeah,
just think how
good.
puffy a pillow is, and there's your Belgian single collar of foam and head retention as a pro tip if you're testing and wanting
I
that
love it.
deeper dive. So on aroma, and I always get frustrated with the style guidelines when it's like low to high, but that's exactly where we're at. Medium low to medium high Belgian yeast character. And that Belgian ale yeast can show up as spicy, fruity esters and or kind of vanilla clove, not to Band-Aid style phenols. So it can be medium low to medium high. I'm going to probably say that the fresher this is, the more you will get a sense of developing yeast character, and the more mature it is, that's going to calm down, I'm going to guess. So, but you generally want to drink these fresh. Also, too, you've got an essence potentially of medium low to medium spicy hops, those continental hops. Could be denoted as floral hops, but you're not always going to find it. But you're looking for at least a hint of it, just medium low at least, not always all the way to medium. And then low to medium low backdrop with those that Belgian Pilsner malt. Now, Belgian Pilsner malt, which we'll express in the aroma, is an important one. And there's Belgian Pilsner malt, there's German Pilsner malt, there's American Pilsner malt. What we're looking for is low to medium notes in the aroma of that Belgian Pilsner malt. Pilsner malt is a lower kilned malt, right? It's low kilned temperatures that are not all the way to roasting, which is really going to advance the barley. So we've got this essence of delicate, bready, kind of crackery, grainy, light honey, as I like to describe it, notes. That's what you're looking for as a backdrop in the aroma, and that'll also carry through over into the flavor. And it's one of my favorite aspects of this beer because besides the yeast character, this beer is really driven by the malt characteristics. The esters are going to take you to that fruity place. There's a mention of apple and pear in the guidelines. I think that's very accurate. Lemon, an essence of kind of lemon verbena comes up to me a lot when I have these beers. And then we talked about, whenever we studied this style, the fact that you don't want those esters to go all the way to bubblegum. Bubblegum, Jeremy, could wax poetic. Don't take your beer too seriously. Like
Yeah.
what you like, but when you're testing for style guidelines or trying to brew for style guidelines, when the style guidelines say bubblegum is inappropriate, you don't want the fermentation temperatures to coax out bubblegum because that Belgian yeast will potentially at the right or wrong, I should say, fermentation temperatures go there. So bubblegum or not, love what you drink, but if you're brewing it, you want to avoid the bubblegum in the aroma.
Yeah, and if I'm judging a beer style with you, and I get some bubble gum, I'll say, "Ooh, that's an off flavor that shouldn't be there." pour me some more because I kind of enjoy it. I'm not gonna lie. Of all the off flavors, that's the least worst that we could be dealing with. When we get to flavor, now this is really for a monastic standpoint, a sessionable beer. So we're looking at malt first. We're looking at this light, grainy, malty, sweet, light honey, biscuity cracker. It just lays down the solid foundation. And then on top of that, then we have this moderate to high bitterness with a moderate to spicy floral hop. Again, they're using continental hops. What does that mean? The continent of Europe. Could be British hops, could be German noble hops. So you're going to get a little bit of those overlap of whatever those flavors are. Earthy, herbal. It's up to the brewer to make that decision. But it is going to have more hop presence in this, unlike its, quote, pun intended, unlike its brethren who are very low on the hop scale. This one is a little bit more hopped up, but it is still balanced not only by those hops, it's also balanced by that yeast character because it is Belgian after all. It is monastic. So we do have these just these moderate, prominent esters. This one that I have been saving, it's actually a secular version of it, but we have these beautiful esters. I definitely got some pear and some apple out of it, some kind of like light orange citrus. That is all fair. You could even have some stone fruit in there. Just it's just these beautiful esters. Again, bubblegum's not supposed to be there. There are worse things, but let's try and avoid the bubblegum if we can. When we get to the phenols, light to moderate, again, quite prominent, spice-like, peppery, clove. These are all the flavors that we're looking for to help balance out that beer along with the hops. Because it is Belgian and monastic, we are expecting a dry finish in those hops. That yeast flavors all should kind of linger into the finish together and within balance. And that's what we're expecting for out of a Belgian single. You want to round it off with mouthfeel?
Yes, the third component
Yeah.
of flavor will take us to mouthfeel. And an aspect of this beer is that it's medium light to medium body. So it's not over the top, it's not heavy. These are sessionable beers. Smooth is one of the descriptors mentioned in the style guidelines, and highly carbonated, right? You're looking for that high carbonation, that refreshment factor, that characteristic carbonation that, frankly, 3+ volumes of CO2 or carbon dioxide that is common to many of the Belgian beer styles. Even goes to somewhat prickly, as mentioned in the guidelines. And you don't want to see a big essence of ethanol. It's not here to barrel you over. You're not supposed to get a big hit on the tongue or the palate of the fact that it's got a lot of alcohol warmth. It's supposed to be mellow and mild.
Yeah, excellent. So when we compare the style to other like categories, a simple way right out of the gate, we could call this a small triple, but with more hop character than a triple would. We could compare this to a Belgian pale, but this is going to be a little bit more hop forward, a little bit more attenuated than a pale. Because remember that if you remember from the other style cast about Belgian pale, it really is meant to be like a British pale, but with Belgian yeast. The monastic single, this is going to be like that, but more attenuated, drier, a little bit more hop character. But there will be some overlap in flavors. And the guidelines also mention this. I think it's a little bit of a stretch, but I see where they're going. They're building some bridge between, between countries there. But they liken it to a German Pils, but it's not quite as hoppy, or the German Pils is not quite as hoppy and attenuated. It's a lager versus an ale, so there are some overlap in the idea of it, but flavor wise, it's just a very, very different beer. I think just the idea of it being a little bit more hop presence in there, or hop balanced, I think was the notion. So those are the styles that we could compare it to and liken it to. Let's talk about the commercial examples.
All right. And I love this trick that I always love to share. If you are looking for naming commercial examples from one producer that can give you commercial examples of many different styles, when it comes to the Belgian styles, Chimay,
Mm-hmm.
which is one of the authentic breweries that really taught us about this style, is a great one. And the way I memorize it is the common Chimay styles that you would see is Belgian double, Chimay Belgian Double, Chimay Belgian Triple, Chimay Belgian Dark Strong or Quad, right? Those three are red is the double, white is the triple, and blue is the dark quad, dark strong. I love that white is the triple because it's the paler color, so that's easy to remember. But then slip under in front of that gold. So you've got the United States colors, red, white, and blue, and then you can slip in front of that for this Belgian, single, the gold. So gold, red, white, and blue for Chimay example. So Chimay Gold. You've got another fun name that makes it really sound delicious is La Trappe Pur, P-U-U-R. Just think it tastes so good, you're purring. And Russian River from the United States, California-based Redemption, which is a revered brewery and so fun that they make an example of this. St. Bernardus, another Belgian-based brewery. They have their Extra 4, which I love. Westmalle Extra, who helped establish this style, I'm sure, and Westhoverland Blonde are other two examples that commonly are listed in the style guidelines.
Yeah, but that being said, these are hard to find. You're better off brewing it yourself.
Yes.
If you're a brewer or a home brewer, it's easier just to do it yourself. So let's talk about the numbers. When we're looking at this beer, so when we look at the lineup of like that you just mentioned, the single, the double, the triple, the quadruple, really the only defining factor of putting that into a series is really the alcohol strength. And so it culminates with the strongest of the bunch, the quad, and then it steps down in alcohol strength all the way down to the single. So that is the least strong beer out of that series, if you will. So the single is therefore going to be right there in our average land, 4.8 to 6. So really, for all intent purpose, this is a 5 to 6% beer on average. So that is just a normal strength, and hence why the brothers would drink this, because they're not trying to party and get a little schnockered at the end of the night. They're trying to get some sustenance and some nutrition out of this beer. So we're looking at 4.8 to 6 ABV. That original gravity is going to work out to be about 1044 to 1054. And if you're a Plato person, that's about 11 to 13 and a half. After it attenuates down, and it will attenuate down really, really well, the yeast will gobble up almost all the sugars. The final gravity will end up at 1004 to 1010. I think 1010 is, for me and Julia, that's that fence where under which it's dry, over which it's starting to get some body. That might even be a stretch. These tend to be very, very dry and very attenuated. So if you're a final Plato person, we're looking at 1 to 2.5. When we get into IBUs, now remember, this is a hoppier version or hoppier style. So we're looking at 25 to 45. Now, all of us who live in America and we're used to 100 IBUs, we're thinking, are you kidding me? But keep in mind, within the context of what we're talking about, 25 to 45 is quite high for a monastic style. And so there is some hop presence, some hop bitterness, some hop flavor in there. When we get into the color, remember, we're looking at pale yellow to gold, so we're looking at about 3 to 5 SRM, or if you're a European Brewery Convention person or EBC, we're looking at 6 to 10. That's the numbers that you can line out, and if you have a chance, if you have to study this stuff and memorize it, line them up visually from between the single, the double, the triple, the quadruple, and see those patterns and see how they overlap. Not only with ABV, but with color and with bitterness. It's an interesting thing because it's the ABV that really lines them up like dominoes. All right, so that's the vital stats. Let's get to the fun part. Let's talk about glass and temperature.
We are going to talk about that. And I want to add a note on the international bitterness units. 25 to 45 is a big range. You get up to 45, and then paying attention to the final gravity that Jeremy mentioned, 1004 to 1010. That's a mostly drier, like below 1008 is a drier beer. If you pay attention to a notion or a concept that I've certainly documented, that was taught to me by Ray Daniels, craftbeer.com currently still has, the way we documented the BU to GU ratio, and we could do a whole prep episode on that. Every time I say that, a fairy gets its wings, and I write a note on my list of prep episodes we need to record. And the BU to GU ratio is all about the fact that bitterness units, those IBU units, balance the gravity units, the residual sugar. And so you're looking for, if 45 bitterness units was balanced by 10.04, a final gravity, that's a really bitter beer. The more sweetness residual sugar, a high final gravity, it's going to perceive as less bitter. So I think that's really interesting to note, is just remembering that these kind of ankle Trappist single style beers can display as very bitter, especially because they are finishing pretty dry. So with that,
that's a great comment.
Yeah, and it's important. That's what these sideline discussions are always about as we work our way through the BJCP style guidelines. And so when I finally would get to drink this, I want this in the classic kind of Belgian goblet. It's footed. It's got a stem. Jeremy, if you're watching us on YouTube, is holding one up. And then it's got this kind of bulbous. It's not quite a triangle. It's not quite a full goblet, but it's got that kind of funnel almost, but it rounds at the top and then tapers up straight. And so I love the fact that at that bottom of that funnel or bulb, it's going to have nucleation sites, and that will help that aggressive carbonation expel out more quickly. So we fill up less and we get more of those volatile compounds to enjoy as we drink it. And so that's the glass I want. I would want this straight out of the fridge, 38 degrees Fahrenheit, and then it will warm up. I would not be upset if anyone served this to me 45 degrees Fahrenheit. But yet I love that experience of drinking a beer over the course of 10, 15, 20 minutes and having, as the temperature changes, that discovery moment by moment, sip by sip experience, and seeing what expresses more strongly because the carbonation or the temperature is not, masking as much. So that's I would start cold and let it get a little warmer as I sipped it.
Well, and it also goes to say that if you're in Belgium and you do find one of these, chances are it's going to have a very specific glass that's branded to that particular beer.
Yes.
And if there's no glass available, you may not get it, because this beer goes with that glass, no exceptions, if, ands, or buts. So keep that in mind. I just, please don't put it in a shaker pint, because there's a lot of history, there's a lot of flavor, there's a lot of fanciness about this beer. Put it in a nice glass. So as far as pairing goes, I think just because you have this beautiful foundation of lighter malt, you have this continental hop presence and prominence, and this beautiful fermentation, the phenols, the esters, the dry body, the accentuated carbonation. I want something fatty. I want roasted chicken, because that's going to not only add to the flavor, that's also going to scrub my palate afterwards. Because of beers like this, I've become a huge fan of pommes frites with mayo, of some, or if you want to fancy it up, we can call it aioli, and that's totally fine. But some really good fries with mayonnaise. And it doesn't sound appetizing to the American palate, but I tried it. I did the research. It's phenomenal. Shrimp croquettes would be great with this, and that's something you can typically find in Belgium as well. I love some steamed veggies, particularly. I love roasted veggies, a creamy pasta with some. I would love this with mild goat cheese, some blue cheeses, because of that hop presence. That would just be really amazing with a blue cheese. But there's so many different options. What would you have, Julia?
I want this beer with lunch. And my day, I want to go to 4 breweries. I'm in Belgium. It's 11 a.m. and we've just gotten up and rolled out of the hotel, or hopefully exercised first, gotten some sunshine. And we're just warming up our palates and kind of peaking our mindsets for the day. And so I just want this with like simple baguette bread, slathered in butter. Maybe I put some apricot preserves on there, and that's going to maybe find its way to the esters. So it's just an easy way to kind of get started kind of beer. And that to me seems like the perfect moment in time to have it, is before you're going to be drinking all day anyway, and it's sessionable and it sets you up right. That's what I want.
Fantastic. So that, everyone, is the Belgian Single, the monastic Pater's beer. Again, It's hard to find. If you can find it, grab a couple, share them with your friends. But it's a fantastic style to learn, and there are more beers to the story. So enjoy it and drink well.
Cheers, everybody.
Thank you for listening to A Sense of Beer Style, the essential beer style training for those who want to lead in food and beverage. With advanced Cicerones, me, Julia,
and me, Jeremy.
Tune into the next episode as we continue exploring the world of beer styles and what to make of them. We encourage you to listen to the prepisodes to build your foundation and better understand beer styles.
And before the next episode, I'd like to ask you to review the show and let us know what you'd like featured in upcoming episodes. Until next time, here's to you and your sense of beer style. Thank you for listening. Cheers.